RCTP, Level 4, 510C to 511A, Introduction. Okay, at the 510C to 511A level, to maintain your climbing physique, you should be climbing about once a week again, and if you want to improve your physique, you should be climbing about twice a week. For your warm-up, you can be bouldering 2 boulder problems in the V0 to V2 range, and then I want you to try to pick like one project boulder problem, so that's like a V3 or V4 range. Your cross training is power yoga, there are some physical strength exercises, and I now want you to also include an end of climbing session training. Your best ways to improve are to practice stemming and smearing the wall, to have a full boulder session once a week, and to also do that end of climbing session training. So at this level, I have a serious question to ask you. Do you want to be a rock climbing athlete? So in general, a recreational climber will be able to climb in the 510 range. This is like you might max out at like a 510B, 510C, and this is where you just want to climb like once or twice a week. You kind of have fun with your friends. You don't really care too much about, everything that you do outside of climbing. You just kind of just have fun with it and you're being active. And this is great. Like your max might just be a 510D. But if you really want to hit the 511 range, it requires you to be a rock climbing athlete. It's going to require you to put in a little bit of work outside of climbing. The difference between a recreational climber and moving into an athletic climber is that athletes are determined to improve at their sport. They're going to say, okay, this is what I got to do. I'm going to go and work hard at it. They're going to develop sport-specific eating habits and maintain them. You're no longer just eating whatever you want, whenever you feel like it. You're starting to think about, okay, I'm going to eat smaller meals more often. I notice what types of food I'm eating, like, am I eating more vegetables? Am I eating more, less carbs potentially? Am I, what's my ratios? It's not just I'm just having giant swaths of pizza for every meal. They'll start to perform cross-training in a weightlifting gym. They'll be like, okay, I really need to work on pull-ups, so I'm going to go and train pull-ups. And they'll start to add in cardio about once a week. It doesn't have to be like necessarily that intense cardio. It could be like even things as simple as I'm going to choose to bike to work and bike back from work, or I'm going to go for a run once a week, or I might even do a hike. For your warm-up, you can boulder 2 problems in the V0 to V2 range, or you can still traverse a wall. Traversing a wall is perfectly acceptable. It teaches you a lot. But then I want you to pick one boulder problem in the V3 to V4 range. Just a reminder that bouldering is the best way to practice technique and the hardest parts of a climb. You might be noticing now that you can no longer make it past the hardest part of a section just because your endurance isn't there and you're starting to burn out. So a better way to practice those moves and start to get better at them is to do bouldering, because you're going to be fresh and you're not going to be burnt out. Here is an outline of our stretches. There are finger, wrist, and forearm stretches. We have frog pose, malasana, lying down shoulder. And just a reminder, you can still do the stretches from the previous other intro videos. Okay, so just, this is just meant to be that I'm slowly introducing more and more stretches, and you can just add in whatever you need to work on. Fingers, wrist, and forearms. We begin this stretch by rotating our wrists, just to kind of warm them up. Then we can look at, stretching out our fingers. We can rotate them all around. Make sure you get around each digit, and then you work your way to your thumb. The other part that's really good is to start to rotate your wrist back like this and kind of hold down. This is really helpful if you're noticing a sharp pain in your elbow, and that normally is because you have really tight forearms. Frog pose. To do frog pose, we get into a kneeling position. We put our knees a little wide, and then we twist our feet out just like that. Hold this again for about 1 minute. Malasana, or yogi squat. For malasana, you might need a block to help you get into this position. Just like this, and then you might also want to remove the block if you can go a little deeper. Lying down shoulder. This is one of my favorite stretches for tight shoulders. So it's a lying down pose. We put our hand into the small of our back like this. And then we just slowly start to rotate and lie down. This might feel a little intense in your shoulder and in your bicep. Again, hold this for about 1 minute to 2 minutes. Cross training. I found that hot power yoga really helped me to get into the 511 range. I also want to include now an end of session training once a week. So if you do have a team that is at your gym, you might notice that once they're done climbing, they go off to the side somewhere and they start doing drills, and they start doing some other type of training exercise. So we're now going to include some of those at the end of all of our ranges going forward. There also are physical strength exercises. You really should start to be training some pull-ups and some chest exercises. Let's look at some terminology. So our first one is barn door. This means that you're slowly rotating away from the wall.
When you're barn dooring, you'll slowly start to just notice yourself go like this.
Our second one is contact strength. This is your ability to stabilize traction on a hold.
Contact strength is used to hold a sloper. So when you think about it, when you first hit a sloper, if you can stick this move and you can keep the friction on it, then you have good contact strength. If you don't have good contact strength, you'll notice yourself just peel off the hold.
Grip strength training. You might have heard a lot of climbers rant and rave about doing hangboarding training or campus board training, but really this should be limited to somebody who's been climbing for at least 2 years and that you're climbing at around a 512 level. Now, it's not really fair because people don't really tell you what to do if you don't meet those conditions. Well, here's what you can do. I find that just campusing a very easy boulder problem that has a lot of jugs or very easy to grip holds is very good for you to do at the 510D, 510C, D range, and then breaking into the 11s. So this you can do for less than 2 years of climbing and around a 511 climber. End of climbing session training. This is super important to start to incorporate, guys. Okay, so this is the very first time we've been talking about this, and going forward, once per week, you should start to include some end of climbing session training. Only once per week because I don't want you guys getting injured. It's not worth it to try to push this and to try to add more in. So what do we do at this level? We campus an easy boulder problem that has lots of jugs in the V0 to V1 range, and this is after you've climbed for about 2 to 3 hours. So you're done climbing now, you're pretty tired for the end of the day, you go and you do an end of climbing session training. You want to find a decline route to campus. Campusing not only helps out your pure power to lift you up, but it also helps out your grip strength, your stabilizer muscles in both your shoulder and your core, and it also helps you to practice catching yourself from swinging. So, campusing is a great overall round technique to start to learn. Be aware that not all routes are great to campus. Even though this is declined and really juggy, it can be a little far. The best ways to improve at this level are to practice smearing the wall and stemming. So not every route you're going to find holds and you're going to have to practice, just touching the wall. Include end of session training once per week. This really helps to blast you through those levels. So you'll start getting 510C, 510D, 511A if you start incorporating that end of session training. And do a full boulder session once a week. So bouldering is a great way to learn a lot more technique, and it's a great way to really push yourself into harder moves. Here is a suggested schedule. So climb once during the weekdays, once on the weekend, and try to do some power yoga. If you want, you can also start to try to do climbing 3 times a week. That might be a little bit intense at the beginning, like when you're still at a 510C level, but when you start to hit the 511A level, you can probably start to climb about 3 times a week.